We're trying to go live if this thing lets us.
Well, everybody makes fun that I've been around since the
We are live. It's Adam Post with RT Bear. RT Bear over here. I'm over there. Art, how are you this morning out there in California?
I'm good.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Oh my gosh, it's a gorgeous day today. I can't believe it. We've had rain all last week and early this week, and now it's gorgeous. We usually don't have clouds, like white fluffy clouds in California. It's usually kind of gray. But man, it is beautiful. I'm up on a hill, so when I look out the studio window, I can see Mount Baldy and everything in Southern California, and it's just all cloud covered, and the top of the hills covered in snow.
Fantastic.
It's beautiful.
Art, you just launched this incredible project. So as the regular comic book industry starts to fall apart, we just keep launching new exciting projects. This is the Vampirella limited edition cover by RT Bear.
Yes.
Art, so this just launched like what, not even 24 hours ago?
It hasn't even been a day yet. Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. Well, I wanted to have you on to talk about it. How did this project come about? Do you know the Vampirella people? You know Nick Barucci?
I've known Nick since he started. What was it? It was it was Dynamic Forces, and they did collectibles like signed and numbered books.
Sure.
And I remember talking to Nick at San Diego Comic-Con, like before any of this stuff happened. And he's like, "This is the idea, Adi. We're gonna do this. We got ideas for that." And he's like, "Would you be interested?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I think early on he had Jay Lee, he had Joe Quesada, he had Dan Panosian, and he had me. And we pretty much just supported each other, like crazy. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Nick Barucci used to have a what was that called? Shopping online. What was that network called where you could shop?
Yeah, QVC.
All shopping, QVC. Yeah, he had a show. He had a show on those networks. So I believe it was him that he set it up, and I did a home shopping, and we signed cable number 1. And we sold a bunch of copies, and we did that show with Mr. T. So it was awesome. So I was on the show, and Mr. T's hawking Mr. T and the T-Force, and I'm hawking, cable number 1. And it was a good time. We got limoed after that to a restaurant, and we ate dinner with Mr. T and everybody. It was awesome.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah. So I go way back with Nick. Nick went to my wedding. He flew all the way out to Ohio, and he stayed for a couple days with us, and we hung out, and he went to the wedding. I still have his wedding present from him and his then girlfriend, Pamela, or Pam, as he calls her, because mine's Pamela, his is Pam. And it's a vase. It's a beautiful Linux vase, and it's in the bathroom still. So thank you, Nick.
Wow. So you did a QVC show where you were signing, or were you talking on the show? I guess he was hosting it.
Oh, we had big sheets of, like, when you were a kid and they'd have those big sheets of paper. We had like big sheets of paper, and I was drawing Cable and other Marvel characters. And so the camera, there was a host, so the camera was mostly on the host, and then he'd walk over and say, "So what are you doing, Art?" And you see this huge drawing of Cable, and then it's like, "What's Mr. T all about?" It's like, "I got this book."
Oh, really? Mr. T was there.
Yeah. It's like, "I got this book, Mr. T and the T-Force." That's
great. Oh, yeah. Now Comics was publishing Mr. T and the T-Force in was it the late 80s or the early 90s, something like that?
It was 90s, yeah. And
it was 90s.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it had a Neil Adams cover on it.
Yeah. That was a great cover. We should get Mr. T in Comicsgate. That would be a good move.
Get who?
Mr. T.
Oh,
he's still around. Did you ever see those Snickers commercials he did?
Yeah,
man, those were amazing. We should do a show just on those.
I think we could probably get Neil Adams before Mr. T, though.
Why do you think? He's got free time, Mr. T.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's in line with our
Mr. T
business. Yeah, but if you've heard,
I don't think Neil Adams is.
I don't know, man. Did you hear him talking about like this coronavirus? And he's kind of like, I'm not sure it's to the extent that it is. He did this whole video, and he's like, most people would rather work than being quarantined and all this other stuff. He's like,
Sure.
let's just get back to work. So he's like, the powers that be, if you're listening, let's just get back to work. Let's
Okay.
stop
I didn't
this
see that.
quarantine nonsense. Yeah.
Well, everybody's got to be safe first, but yeah, you can't protect people from everything, so you kind of have to. Well, let's just hope some of these new therapies and treatments that they're trying are as effective as it looks like they might be. That would be amazing. Oh wow, look, Commandinator says Mr. T is not as macho as some popular movie film stars. Yeah, he appears as Arnold Schwarzenegger pretty much everywhere, and he does an amazing job of it.
That's
So,
cool.
Any comments from him are great. He's really, really entertaining guy. Also, hi to Peter Charon and Blue Sea Hill. Great to see you guys in the chat. Great to always have your guys' support jumping in. And I actually have not had a chance to really talk at length with Art about this project, but also some of the other changes in the comic book industry. Art and I have seen a lot of things happen in the comic industry over the years. So that's a hell of an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah,
so
we've seen fire and we've seen rain.
We've seen fire, we've seen rain. You got to back this book if you want me to sing more, or don't back the book if you don't want me to sing at all. Well, it's going to be one of the tiers. You'll see. Just keep an eye on this campaign. All right. So this is Vampirella #1. So this is a new ongoing series that Nick is doing. I don't know a lot about what he's doing with Vampirella right now.
Yeah, I believe so. So this is issue 1, and there's some interior pages. It looks gorgeous. Yeah, keep going. There it is. And yeah, look at that splash page. The coloring looks amazing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so I think it's Christopher Priest that's writing it.
Yeah,
and yeah, it looks amazing. So you're not only going to get a great cover, but you're going to get a great story and artwork as well.
It's really cool. And it says here that it's already done 150,000 copies, which is pretty outrageous.
Yeah.
Especially, for nowadays. I mean, that's like 1,000 copies a store almost. If you think, maybe not exactly, but it's a lot of copies.
Yeah, when you think most, God, what is an average now? 15 to 20,000 sales? Is that accurate?
I mean, no, there are books that sell plenty less than that. There are about 1,900 shops left, but about word is about 20% of the accounts make up about 80% of the business.
No, I mean, as far as sales, like an average sale for a comic book, is it like 15, 20,000, or is it less?
I mean, it depends what it is. It could be considerably less. But
Wow.
Nick is very slick with his direct-to-consumer selling, even before crowdfunding. And he's very slick with his multiple covers and things like that in a positive way, slick. Identifying that, yes, there's a collector's market and they are willing to buy multiple copies if they have different covers. Some people like virgin covers, the line art covers, all these different variants that people do like to collect. It's part of the fun of collecting, having different versions. And this same book, Ethan Van Sciver did a couple of covers for by now, right?
Oh, yeah. I think he's got 3 different campaigns.
Mm-hmm. 3 different Vampirella covers. And then I think even that Star Wars girl is doing a cover. I saw one, the mock-up art for it the other night.
And I think Dan Fraga is working on one as well with his Black Flag characters. I don't think it's going to be Vampirella, though. I think it's Red Sonja and one of the other IP characters.
Cool.
Yeah.
He's built up something good over there. He's built up something good, and I appreciate how he's been supporting Comicsgate and giving people some opportunities.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that this does well enough because I like drawing sexy women, but I have an offer on the table to do Black and White and the Green Hornet and Kato, because there's a new series that Dynamite's doing, and there's a Lee Weeks cover. It's awesome. It's just the Green Hornet, like with the gun aimed at the camera, and he's got a baby in his arms. It's just gorgeous.
Wow. Lee Weeks is fantastic.
Yeah, Nick always gets good artists.
Didn't he do some Hulk that was just fantastic? Am I remembering correctly?
Everything Lee Weeks does is amazing. Yeah.
So when you say you have an offer on the table, what is that, for a cover or for a series, or what?
Yeah, for another one of these
Okay.
direct to consumer Indiegogo campaigns. So it'd be a variant cover with Black and White and Green Hornet and Kato. And if you guys have heard my YouTube show, I talk about it all the time, that basically the inspiration for Black and White is the Green Hornet and Kato.
Yeah, actually, I know of the Black and White, but not nearly enough. So you did a remastered edition of this not too long ago, right?
Yeah,
Not of this, but of Black and White.
yeah.
Okay.
So this is the Greg Capullo variant. Here's the graphic novel.
You're showing it. All right, hold on. Let me get on your screen there. Solo layout. Wow. Wow. When did that come out?
This is the Greg Capullo remastered cover. So this was originally done in 1994. So Greg did me a solid, and I inked it up. So recently I remastered it and got it digitally colored, so it looks more contemporary. So we got that, and then you got to do the cool back for a graphic novel.
Sure.
So yeah, we did this a few months back. And we funded, I think we did close to $70K on the book. So thanks to all the backers. And we are going to do a new campaign where we're going to reissue this. So it's a second chance campaign for Black and White Volume 1. And if you guys want, go to Indiegogo and you can pre-launch, sign up for the pre-launch page and get a free trading card when you do that. So you'll have a second chance to get the original, pretty much the whole campaign. I'm going to reissue even all the stretch goals, but they're going to be at a premium. So you'll have to pay for those. You won't get those free, but we will offer them because there's all kinds of cool, like we have patches and buttons and all kinds of stuff that people were digging.
That's a great way to handle it. Hey, Blue Samurai, how you doing? Yeah, that's right. Two old guys together. Between the two of us, I was just telling Art before, I think we have about 1,000 years of comic book experience.
Easily 1,000.
Easily 1,000. We're not as young as we look.
Oh no,
Blackout. Yeah, no, that's
you know what this is, Adam. This is good living.
It's clean living. Clean living.
It's
clean living and lots of comics. Art, give us the link later for the sign up. And we should always be pushing those sign up launch pages so that on day one, you've got as much action as possible on the campaign. Yeah, really helps to get the word out. So if you have the link and you want to message it to me, even in the private or on Twitter, then I'll get it into the chat so people have it. We can spread it around a little bit.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah,
absolutely. He is anonymous. However, that is supposed to be pronounced. I'm not anonymous. He's a character.
Anonymous.
What is the story about for Black and White? Pitch me already.
Yeah, you want the pitch?
I actually like that Schwarzenegger nonstop talk. Yeah, just for Black and White. I care about Black and White even more than I care about Vampirella, but I care about this Vampirella cover because you're doing it and you've got Black and White on it. But yeah, let's focus on Black and White a little bit because that's yours. It's been around for years and it's coming back and it's going to be amazing. So what is Black and White?
So it's Reed Blackett, aka Black. He's the guy in black, if you didn't figure that one out. Cool. And he is an ex-MI10 agent with the Queen's Secret Service. So this is a Future 10 story. So we resurrected MI10. So MI6 is like James Bond. MI10 during the war, the Great War.
I never heard of MI10. Yeah, it's interesting.
It was an actual division. And they were like weapons development. So weapons and like all the spy gadgets and stuff. They were not spy gadgets, but I'm sure they created those too. And it was an actual division. And then after the war, it was shut down. And so, like I said, this is a Future 10 story. So it's basically, it's active now. And the reason it's active is because this is a robotic society now. So the future will have robots living side by side. And so this division was created it's like MI10 is now robotics division. And so what they do is they have agents that study the psychology of robots. Sentient robots are against the law. And so, so basically, you have spies and you have these police agencies that go and police rogue, drones, robots, things like that. So Reed was part of that that division. But just like I always think I saw this it's kind of a documentary BBC, and it's called The Perfect Spy, and they got into what the life of a spy really is like, not like James Bond. And my gosh, it is the saddest lifestyle you've ever seen. And so I started thinking, well, maybe it's not all like, like James Bond. Maybe it's actually kind of sad and depressing. Killing without conscience, just following orders without knowing the ramifications, just stuff like that. So Reed was kind of disillusioned. So when he retired, it was because he had seen a lot of crap and was tired of it. And so then he's trying to start his own life as a importer exporter, which I thought would be perfect for a guy that was a spy. Like he still travels the world, and does these business dealings and stuff. So he's in China, and he's looking into this small family owned brewery, and it's called White Sung Brewery. And so Whitney Sung, aka White, is the heiress of the brewery, and she runs it with her uncle. And so Reed is basically he's still trying to be a hero, still trying to be a good guy. So he's helping this struggling brewery with his importing and exporting. And so they're with his help, they're gonna do skyrocket business. And so, but what happens to interrupt it, and also Reed and Whitney obviously have an attraction. And so what happens is her past comes back to haunt her. And so I'm not going to say too much, but this guy is devastating. He's horrible. And he has roots in her whole family lineage. And so then Reed sees what's going on. And so he wants to help her out. And he knows what this guy is all about. She kind of knows, but she's just all about trying to keep herself safe. And then also she gets angry and goes after this guy. Like she's a ballistic character. So she takes care of things with her fists. And so Reed realizes that she's just going to destroy herself because he's been around, the spy business. He knows this kind of personality. The ends justify the means. She'll go in and she'll just damn herself in the process. So he realizes that this has to be done in a different way so she can be saved. You know what I mean? So she doesn't go to jail or die or just have to deal with this on her conscience, like stuff that he's had to deal with. So he doesn't want her to kill this guy. So he basically dawns on, he becomes a vigilante to help her. So he realizes he doesn't want to be a spy. He's not a cop. So he just kind of does this vigilante thing. And so, but he has his own mantra. So it's kind of where the tagline is, in a world where law and order is often blurred to gray, justice can only be black and white. So to him, there's only good and evil. There's no shades in between. So he cuts through all the bullshit. And so he then tries to help her, train her, give her a suit, basically aim her in the right direction, but in a good way. Like, we're going to bring him to justice. We're not going to kill this guy. You know what I mean? And so we're going to kind of try to follow the law as much as we can, even though we're vigilantes. So she's not 100% sold on that. She still wants him dead, but now
they're operating in China.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how far in the future is this?
I'm thinking maybe 30 to 50 years, when robotics have just become mainstay. Like it's not uncommon to walk down the street and see, robots, think of iRobot, kind of FedEx, delivery done by robots and cashiers and different things. But they can't be sentient. There are laws. And so basically, that's the crux of the story. And she's just a ballistic character that just wants vengeance. And so at the end of the first issue, you see that she gets them into a lot of trouble because she doesn't want to do the black and white justice thing. She wants to do her own justice.
On the whole premise of black and white, do you have it's sort of like this meets that? If you were going to, summarize it, like James Bond, 50 years in the
James
future.
Bond meets iRobot. I don't know, something like that. Because basically, Reed is a robot hunter. So he not only understands the psychology and can infiltrate and do all the spy stuff, but he's also like he does assassinations just like a normal spy would, but only he would take down robots. And some of these robots aren't, they're beyond human beings. These things are super strong and have all kinds of they could potentially have weapons and things like that. So he's a pretty killer fighter. So he understands the psychology of robots and can take some of the biggest and baddest robots down single-handedly.
And he's totally independent. He doesn't report to any government. He just kind of does his own thing.
Not at this point, yeah. So we do have some future stories where, and at the end of Volume 2, spoiler alert, there may be a proposal from MI10 to get him and Whitney back in the fold because they just see the potential of these two guys. And I thought about it this way too. If the legal system knew who these guys were, they would either want to work with them or they would shut them down. There's very little wiggle room there. Kind of like Batman Commissioner Gordon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty involved. So how many books did you do of Black and White?
I did the original 3 issues in 94 through Image Comics. And then the following year in 95, 96, we launched the ongoing. But as you know, Adam, we've been around. 95, 96 were not good years.
No.
The heydays and the numbers they weren't just slipping. They started just plummeting. And so by the time we got the ongoing out, the numbers, because I do, Nick Barucci is a good friend. So, I'd consult with him and he was like, just figure the numbers are going to be half of what they were the year before. Boy, was he wrong. They were way less. And so when we did the ongoing, we still sold. God, what was it? It was like 200,000 or 170,000 copies?
Oh, wow.
That's issue 1. But like issue 2 will take a half it'll take a dip, usually half, and then issue 3 is kind of another third or whatever of that. Or quarter of that number. And so then when you do the math, the projected math, we just couldn't. Hey, Kevin, we couldn't sustain it long term as an ongoing. And vendors, I don't know if you were putting out books. I think you were, Adam. But vendors, especially if you were doing like Image Comics, they were charging you the highest rate. Film output, digital color, lettering, everything was like top rate.
Everything was expensive.
Yeah. Coloring, what was coloring was several hundreds of dollars. Inking, I was paying, because I brought an inker in, Jaime Mendoza. I was paying him like, I think $300 a page.
Yeah, it was a lot of competition for talent.
Yeah. And so then what happened is I remember going to all the vendors and saying, I can keep this book going because we have pretty good numbers if everybody takes a pay cut. And then everybody was like, nope. It's kind of like what's happening now. People weren't ready to recognize that things were really changing and they were changing quickly. So they didn't want to adjust their rates. Eventually they had to,
because the work wasn't there.
Yeah, the work was right up.
When books were selling huge and people were making a fortune on them, obviously it's much easier to pay a much higher rate.
Yeah,
goes without saying.
Yeah, we did, because we had Oli Optics. They were the top color house at the time. They were doing our coloring, and yeah, all our vendors were top tier. And do you remember this, Adam? Film output.
Yeah, film output would have been we would get our stuff colored, and then you need to get each of 4 colors put out as film, and then stripped together for the printer. A whole other part of the production process. And you needed people who knew what they were doing that were doing that, or the books wouldn't reproduce well.
Yeah, we had Kello Graphics, and they were charging us like $100 a page just for film output.
Mhm.
and they didn't want to budge either on their prices. So yeah, I mean, just $100 for film output, you
Now that was
know,
when you were being published by through Image.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so who was in charge at Image of negotiating those prices to try to get better deals and stuff? Was anybody in charge, or everybody kind of did their own thing?
I think it was just kind of like Comicsgate, where we all do our own thing, and if there is good information, you spread it around. Uh,
Sure.
but I remember talking to, gosh, I forget who was in charge of Image at the time. He was the guy that did Bean World. If there's anybody in the chat, that Larry
Yeah,
Martin.
Larry. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember having a meeting with Larry, and I was like, "What can we do? I want to keep this book going." And he's like, "I'll tell you what you can do, Art. Black and white in black and white." And I'm like, "That's
Mm.
your answer?" No, we can't do that. I mean, black and white books sell, traditionally they sell a lot worse than color books. So yeah, we're going to charge the same amount of money and do it in black and white. No.
Yeah, I mean that's Image wasn't known for that much either. Especially there'd been no Walking Dead at the time. That was pre-Walking Dead.
Right, especially since that was like the digital boom, like computer color. Everybody wanted that. It would be kind of like the film era when Technicolor came into vogue, and then somebody going, "You know what? Let's do our next movie in black and white."
Yeah,
No
that's
one's
not what people were supposed to look at an Image comic and say wow and be blown away by just the graphics and the design. And yeah, black and white would not have done it.
No, other than the clever title, which really wasn't that clever, black and white in black and white, but whatever.
Yeah, that's clever at least, but yeah, it doesn't look the same. I mean, even as you can see here, your black and white art looks great, but the color it's really dynamic as hell. It's really cool.
But like you said, I think people would accept a black and white book now way more than they did then, because it was really like the birth of that digital color, that eye candy that was happening. And really Image pioneered that, if you think about it, like to that level.
Image did a lot, and Malibu Comics did a lot with their coloring studio, their in-house coloring studio. They had I don't know how many people, but a bunch of people there doing coloring, and that was a benefit to Marvel when they eventually acquired Malibu.
That's the only reason that most of us could figure out why Marvel bought them to begin with.
Marvel bought them just to take out a competitor for market share, but also because people didn't realize like Marvel was what they were doing with their stock was trying to just kind of constantly show more and more growth. And they acquired Fleer, they acquired Panini, a trading card company, a sticker company. They just kept acquiring as much as they could to generate more and more revenue, so they could report more revenues, and the stock price would stay high.
Right.
But what they didn't see coming was the Major League Baseball strike, which really, really severely damaged the value of the trading cards. But the other thing was they really didn't have people that understood comics to the extent like, speculators are fine. People that want to buy books and have them go up in value, those people are fine to have in comics. But people have to read the stories and they have to enjoy the stories, or there is no value for a speculator in the future. Because the idea is people buy black and white #1 when the comic comes out with the idea that they like the series, are excited about the series, and then speculators might buy copies and store them away. And those speculative copies are only going to be valuable if people want to go back and get the earlier issues as the series go up in reader demand.
Right.
That was something that nobody did better than Valiant 1.0, where their early issues, you put out an issue, and it's the same thing for Comicsgate. You put one book out, and you put it out in the month of June, whatever the year is. There are going to be other people that are going to be interested in reading that book in the future. So you're never going to reach your full potential, aside from new people coming into the business. Like however many copies you sold of Black and White, that collection, however many copies you'll sell of this Vampire limited edition cover, there will be people in the future that are interested in buying that. As you saw from I'm sure you stayed in demand for a while on
with Black and White, yeah, and Chrono Mechanics is in demand right now as well.
So let's even look at Chrono Mechanics. Let me find that on another tab.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's look at it because it's I like people to just kind of be aware of this. Is you want to do great work that you're really passionate about, and you ideally want to keep that work in print for as long as you can. You don't want to hide it from other people. That hopefully I can spell chronomechanics right. We'll see. Yeah, I can. All right, Adam, way to go. I like to compliment myself because otherwise, who else is going to do it? All right.
I like the letter play in Chrono where it's like it's ONO.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's easy to remember. So looking at this, so it got funded with 378 backers for $26,815. And now you've done more than another $10,000 on this. Well,
Yeah.
almost exactly $10,000 additional sales. And those and 495 backers. Those additional sales are important for us as publishers, as you know, because a lot of the costs get covered, in the first 18, 19, or even $24,000 or something like this.
Right.
It's very expensive to make comics. It's very expensive to ship comics. It's very expensive to make these additional add-on items. One item like bookmarks, okay, it's not expensive to make bookmarks, but everything adds up over time. So staying in demand like this, getting more people to follow, to understand it's available, and there you are doing another $10,000. I did with College of the Dead in our first campaign. Show this.
Yeah, over the weekend, man, you had a major boost, right?
We had a good boost on College of the Dead book 2. I'll show that in a second.
Book 2, yeah.
But on the first campaign, I've published more than 1,000 comic books, and I've produced a lot of good stuff. And the story for College of the Dead is excellent. The art is great. I ship everybody. I'm on time. But people don't have a relationship with me if they haven't bought books from me yet. So it took 60 days to raise $5,000 with 100 backers, which I was very, very grateful to have on College of the Dead book 1. So it finally completed August 25th after 60 days. And then we had promised to ship October 2019. We shipped on time, which was great. And then over time, another 6.5 months, we generated another, whatever it was, $5,300. That was another 100% of what we raised initially. And we've been shipping those books. But if the book wasn't in demand, they wouldn't have sold, and I wouldn't have had that relationship with another 109 backers. And this book was black and white. And I mean, I know you love this piece in black and white art.
Oh my gosh,
you always compliment it. They did come out fantastic. But the interior is black and white book, and people are okay with black and white. They're not really against it, but they don't get as excited as they get about color. So just showing really quickly, like the results so far is like, yeah, we have had success with College of the Dead book 2, Graduation Day, Bing Bang Boom. But so now in 18 days, roughly, we generated more money than College of the Dead did in, 8.5 months.
Yeah.
So it's 36 weeks. These kind of dynamics are important to keep in mind for everybody thinking about comics, everybody thinking about supporting comics, and it's certainly everybody thinking about publishing comics, to just kind of look at how things work, that, once you prove yourself, people get to know who you are. So we've got 207 backers. I'm 2 backers away from my total from College of the Dead 1, but we have done more revenue than we did in College of the Dead 1. But this book is in full color. And color, I do like the black and white one too. Maybe we have to do a line art, cover art. You could talk me into it, but this book, yeah, there you go.
Let's do it, as in you do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's my problem. I'll do it. But with an interior that's color, there's some people that do just like the black and white, but a lot more people are willing to look at stuff that's color. So it does make a difference.
I think a lot of the success has to do with not only the color, but it's the follow-up, and that you're building a voice, you're building a reputation, all those things, all those factors are creating more success for you down the line. And I think it's amazing, and this is a testament to that, because you're not even done with your live campaign yet, and you've already beat. How many months was the previous campaign?
So the first campaign was for 30 days, and then I extended it another 30 days. And then, so that was a total of 60 days.
And then In Demand.
In Demand had went on another 6.5 months.
So was that 8 months?
8.5 months, man.
So it took
36 weeks. I did the math the other day because I was like, I got to be able to talk about this. This is kind of important. It's kind of important.
But look what you've done in 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, 18 days, not even 3 weeks.
18 days, yeah.
But there's another really interesting dynamic to it. Here it is. The other interesting dynamic is, and this is good for people to know, Art, this is why I tell people, think about sequels, my brothers and sisters, sequels. So this current book, College of the Dead Graduation Day, is a sequel, and it's fantastic. And it was by the same creative team as the first one, plus a great colorist. But now look, so the arm and a leg cover plus the prequel, 48 copies. So just on this tier, we did 48 copies. We had 209 backers after 8.5 months from the first campaign. And I believe everyone bought that first book. So that's 48 copies of the prequel sold. And then we sold more copies of the other book. But then look again over here, another 33 copies of the prequel sold as part of a set for the old and the new. So that's, what is that, 81 copies. And then we have the One of Everything of all the prequel editions. So that's another 9 copies. So that's 90 copies sold so far of the prequel book. So it doesn't mean that half of all my books are the prequel book. That's not exactly how the math all adds up. But of the 207 backers, I can tell you that at least whatever it is, 90 of them are getting the first book. That's a lot. That's a lot, especially considering we are getting repeat business. And my customers, love me and the fans love the comic, but I wouldn't expect a lot of people who already bought the prequel book to buy it again. You're not expecting a lot of repeat, but you do expect them to probably buy the sequel.
Right.
So the point is, if as you build success with your campaign, if you're able to continue to keep your older books in print, especially if you have continuity, that's the value of a sequel. So as you're building momentum, it's additional momentum. Yes, people are buying more because they've seen me around more of Comicsgate. They've got to know me. This guy is amazing. We love Adam Post, most people, but they are interested in being able to, it's just more people you can expose to your property. So that's why, like with Black and White, when you're ready to do a sequel to Black and White, you'll get, probably a 50% repeat of whoever bought Black and White in the past you'll sell additional new copies going forward of your new book, and as well as your prequel is the point. So the backlist really makes a difference. It really adds a
always overprint, right? So always overprint as well. When you initially printed the first version, how many did you overprint?
Well, we digitally printed a good number of them, and we have more than just that to deal with because I'll show you in a second. Let me go back to this. We were also dealing with printing the ash cans and the art books. I know you've seen those.
Right.
Oh, by the way, Art, check it out sometime. My friend Professor Geek a few months ago did this review of College of the Dead, and he's an editor and this disciplined writing guy. So it's very cool to see him talking about the book.
Oh, I like Professor Geek. He's got a YouTube channel as well. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a great writing channel, right?
I sent him a Superman piece of artwork, a print, and I don't know if he still has it behind. You know how he's got the wall and he's got the artwork on the wall. It used to be back there, yeah.
All right, I'll check with him. I'll tell him, damn, you better get that print back on the wall. He does. He and I are working together on G.I. Jackrabbits. We're writing the script together for the relaunch of G.I. Jackrabbits. I love working with the guy. He's fantastic.
I like when he does like book reviews, or he does like where him and his partner, I can't remember his partner on the show, where they analyze great books. And so it was the Robert Louis Stevenson, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I think it was a 2-parter. It was pretty cool. Just hearing those guys break it all down and everything. Hell, Adam and Art.
Yeah, hell, Death Pusher. Death Pusher is on our side. We love Death Pusher
He pushes the death
in the right way. He pushes good things too,
only in the
positive
best
things.
direction.
Oh yeah, Kevin was sharing around copies of the supplemental books too, the art book and the Ashcan. So yeah, these are making of work in progress versions of the books. And I encourage other creators, if their format allows, like if they can do it, to really look into doing these kinds of supplemental books, because they're really interesting. Like, who else gets to see like the original artwork at full size, without lettering on it? Now, especially that I'm doing color, um, I don't have an art book for my second edition, but I'm going to have to produce one. I'm going to make an announcement about that soon, about the art book and about the Ashcan.
Well, the art book, the reason I think it works as well, the art book works because the way you laid out College of the Damned, or College of the Dead, I'm sorry, is that it's like a 6-panel grid and that they're all equal in size. So they're almost like storyboards. So you can take that panel and you can put it right on the page. And I think that's really cool because then they can see all the detail in that panel, almost either actual size or bigger. That's pretty cool. Like if I was an artist, I'd be crazy flattered with that.
Yeah, Javier loves it. Yeah, he loves all the formats. He loves how we handle his material. And as a publisher, you really want to, first of all, it's good for sales, but it's good for the relationship with the talent. You really want to present people's work in the best possible light at all times. You want to really also give it the attention that it deserves, because as you know, as an artist, people have no idea how much work and energy and how much of your self as a human being that you have to put into the work to make it look special, whether it's your character or you're working for someone else.
It ain't easy, people. It ain't easy.
No matter how easy you make it look, Art, no matter how I make it look easy, because for me it's easy. I just work with great talent. The trick, like I have with working with people, is, have they done this kind of work before, or do I have to mentor someone? And I have nothing against mentoring someone, and I've done it before, of things that I know and I can help people along. But if you work with someone who's a pro, you kind of know what you're going to get. So it's just sort of a great thing to hire people that know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, and your art form is all in writing the checks, right? It's like you have a flair.
Yeah, I have a sort of a woohoo. You got to make the noise. Woohoo. My talent is in hopefully building teams, working creatively with people. But a lot of it is coming up with the idea for the project. But also, in some cases, I'm involved heavily in writing. Some cases involved just a little bit in the writing, and the aesthetics and putting the package together and the marketing of it. But it's so great to be able to collaborate with people. It's so it's really rewarding and empowering for me, but also for other people, because as far as I'm concerned, you put people in a position where they can do their best work. That's my job, is make sure everybody can do their best work and make sure everybody feels like their contribution is being appreciated. And the trick with that is that you get people to do things who are really, really capable, because it doesn't help. You don't want to flatter people when they're not doing great work. You just want to get the best work that you can from people that really know what they're doing. And all of a sudden you've got great work, whether it's the writer, the artist, the letterer, the colorist, or the printer.
Yeah, the emails are usually like, it looks great. However, if maybe we tried this, or
had you thought of,
but I remember working with somebody and they're like, but every time you send me an email, Art, it always has a however and a but in it. And I'm like, but then it starts off with a compliment and I'm like, is it working? And they're like, yeah,
it does work.
It does work, because I don't want to beat anybody down. Like, what would you rather me do? Just go, just fix this, change this, and just be very blunt with it? Or would you rather me point out the good parts and then go into the however or but, part of the email?
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge. See, the first thing is skill set when I look at something, right? And I look at a working relationship. First thing is, does this person seem to have the chops? Do they have the ability? Then I look at what is their experience level in what I'm asking them to do. Like if I asked Ethan to do a cover for me, of, some hot girl or something like that. I saw what he did for Vestige. He's very capable of that. I actually was messaging with him a couple months ago about doing a cover for College of the Dead, which I would have loved to have him do, and he expressed some willingness to do it, and said he'd probably be interested in doing it. But the thing is, I don't want to put burden on him when he's busy with everything that he has to do. So it almost feels like it's not worth it to him. He's very generous with his time and what he does for his friends, but
Right.
and anybody in Comicsgate. But at the same time, it's like, regardless of what I paid him, it's not worth his time really necessarily to do it. I don't know. So, but I also haven't seen him do zombie stuff before. So something like that would actually be a risk in execution.
Oh, I think like in Darkest Night, wasn't there there's zombie characters and stuff in that?
I don't know. I should go check that out and see.
Yeah.
Because if it's something, and I know he does like zombies. So for something like that, if it's something that he wants to do and he thinks is fun, then it's a cool thing. But that's the first thing is has somebody, do they have the ability? And the next thing is, do they have experience doing what I'm asking them to do? And if it's a cover and it's a one-time thing and you schedule it and it's fine. If it's something like the 48-page sequel to College of the Dead, which I'm planning out now, I know what the writer's capable of. I know what the artist's capable of. If they say they have schedule availability, I know it's going to be there when they say it's going to be there because they've done work for me before and I've seen them do other work before. But you could find another great artist and they may have great qualities. They may do great zombies and sexy women and things like that. But if I don't have a working relationship with them, then I have to figure out how am I going to mitigate that risk? And I've got to look at that carefully. But if we have a good working relationship with people who have the ability and they've done that kind of work before, then I'm kind of looking at communication with the person to make sure they understand exactly what it is that I want. But at the same time, you open a place where they can be organic with whatever it is that they're doing.
Right. I ran Hack Shack Studios for 25 years and it still kind of exists, just not to the extent it was. But I probably had 6 people working, out of the studio at one time. And so the key really is, and this is also why working with somebody like you, Adam, or me, or you kind of become a mentor as well, that they get something out of it as on top of that. Because one of the things for me was key is that I realized when I first started doing it that I treated everybody the same, and I was like, do it this way, and it was very kind of like, here's how you do things, all the way to specific, like how you do an ink stroke or whatever. I mean, it was very, very specific. And then I started watching people that they naturally would do it in a different way. Like it wouldn't be organic or natural for them to do it the way I was showing them. So then I started becoming a little bit more flexible. And it's like, as long as the end result looks like this, you know what I mean? You start learning ways to communicate with people. And then, for me, it was about like figuring out, like when you spend time with them, who they are and how you can communicate with them. Some people you can be very blunt and direct with. Some people you have to walk on eggshells with, because they're very reactionary. They get hurt. And there's all kinds of different personality types, and then there's also personality types that are more in line with your personality, and you get along with those people very, very well.
And that's personal stuff. Those are people that you could tell dirty jokes with and just like screw around with and like get laughing and be like, hey, by the way, such and such, and you almost handle the business like at the end of the phone call because everything's just jiving so well. But I think it's important. One of the other things I'll do with freelancers, if I hire a freelancer, when I hire freelancers, is understand what other work they're doing so that I understand how my work fits into their lifestyle and their current workload. Because a lot of times people will say yes to doing things, but not understand, what their other obligations are or how they're going to, finish my work or something like that. So it's that extra communication in the beginning is good. And then the other thing is the, milestones.
Well,
where
communication, if I could back up for a minute. So, like, if you identify that maybe this person is overextending themselves, it's not just understanding that, but it's also that you have to make a decision. Do you think this person is going to prioritize your project over these other ones? Or do you think they're just going to get inundated and overwhelmed and then just shut down?
yeah, well, there are some,
All of these things. Yeah.
and there are some people that have been in the fire before, and they've managed those sorts of things. That's where, frankly, art, I have to hold my tongue, and I don't always, and it annoys people. And I try not to, like in CG, we are all in that same boat, because we all are endorsing each other when we're on a YouTube show together, when we have hashtag Comicsgate in our tweets, so not to single out Mike Miller, but I have to. He's someone, in terms of how he's treated customers, in terms of his general attitude about things, the pride is a sin tweet, being late on books and things like that. Even though he's not Comicsgate anymore, it still reflects on us. So, hopefully it doesn't. But I see not just Mike. I see other. I could say anything I want about Mike, as he and I are not such big fans of each other. Although I have no problem with him, he helped sell a lot of extra copies of College of the Dead by criticizing me. So I appreciate it. I appreciated that.
True, yeah, that happened just a week ago, right?
Art, get the word out that Mike Miller has been saying that there's no way my campaign, even in demand, will not break $50,000.
Yeah.
Because Comicsgate is pretty much dead. As soon as Mike keeps repeating that, and maybe Edwin laughs about it a few times, give it 3 or 4 days and it'll be funded at 50,000. But the point of it is like, that having been in the fire, there are solutions to things. There is problem solving. And as guys who've been around it a little while on the production side, and we've dealt with a lot of people before, like, you can put books together and you can make them look great and you can solve problems. But one good relationship with one working partner, one freelancer, one writer, one artist can be worth a fortune. So even if some
valuable, yeah,
very valuable. So even you try something, that's why, like, as publishers or as guys that put together projects, and you are a publisher, so as publishers, it's very important to us to always be looking for new talent. And if we can start a working relationship with someone and we would do well on one project, we could be working with them for 25 years after that.
Yeah. I've had a decade, like at Hack Shack Studios, when you gel with that guy and they're giving you great work and they're making good money. And I've had relationships that have gone 10 years, 10, 12 years, working hand in hand, 10, 12 years.
And those relationships become the foundation.
Yeah. At least for that decade or so. Yeah.
And also it attracts other talent. It's great to be able to tell people, and I'll always tell people, of other working relationships of, you could ask this person, that person, who I work with, and they love working with. It's very easy to spoil freelancers and just treat them great. Like, immediately they complete something, you pay them, and like people remember that. When you're waiting on money, that's a problem. So,
well, can I name drop some of those guys that I was alluding to that came out of Hack Shack Studios?
Yeah, if it's positive, by all means, let's say good things about
positive. People. So Trevor Scott, who was a linchpin at Wildstorm when Image hit. So there was Trevor Scott, and I brought him in with no skills at all, and so he worked his way up. I had Danny Mickey, who later went to ink Greg Capullo on Spawn, and he's a big time player at DC as well right now. And so Jaime Mendoza, Larry Stucker, Marlo Acquiesa, John Sabal. Oh my gosh, I'm missing a bunch, but like top tier inkers that have come out of Hack Shack Studios. Tim Townsend, Dan and I gave Tim Townsend his first job. He was helping out on Blacks and doing some hard lines on the Spawn issues that we did. So we brought him over to Extreme Studios. So there's been a lot of people like that. that have come out of the studio. And the thing is, the reputation and working with these guys just built and built and built. And that's why we had the stability that we had over that 25 years or so. And I could continue it to this day, but my heart's in more like what we're doing, Adam, like the indie, creating your own IPs, telling your own stories, things like that. This
is really it's really where the opportunity is, and we're in kind of a boom time, and I think that it will continue to grow. I think that there's a lot more that we have to do beyond just YouTube streams. The YouTube stream is a great way to connect with people, but we have a lot of energy. But as you know from having built things up before, we have to have discipline, because if we don't have discipline, and just in what, like literally in everything, we have to figure out how to be as organized as possible, ship things on time, solve our international shipping and domestic shipping issues, figure out how to collaborate on printing, production, whatever we can do, not to even save money. It's not about saving money. It's that if you don't have an efficient system and you have a lot of friction in the system, it'll create friction in other places. It won't run properly. And then we may have a problem at some point, and we've got an inefficient system. Talking about an inefficient system, and that's what Diamond is facing now. This is just like the latest article. I didn't even see this one yet.
When did this come out? Today?
The 25th.
Yesterday?
Yesterday. And this is from Bleeding Cool, Diamond Comics distributors making redundancies, which for regular people, that just means laying people off. That's the UK term for laying people off.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I first heard about Diamond closing its door to new product art, I thought that meant it was not going to take on new solicitations. I didn't realize, meaning solicitations is when us publishers once a month, and we don't currently, but if we were distributed through Diamond, you would send Diamond information on what your new releases are going to be. You'd be in their new catalog. They would print and produce a new catalog. Diamond has been producing pre-order catalogs for comic book fans and comic book shops for ever since probably 1991, I would say, maybe 1990. So frightening as it is, that's 30 freaking years. So I thought this would be the first time in 30 years they wouldn't be producing a catalog. Well, it's not just that they're not producing a catalog. They're refusing to accept things that they guaranteed that they would order already. So they will not, for stuff that was ordered months ago and stuff that manufacturers have been making, I can guarantee there are printers that have printed product, not all, but plenty of printed product, games, toys, books, all sorts of things that Diamond has said, listen, we're not physically accepting these goods. We will sell anything that we have on hand very happily to whomever will buy it, but we will not physically take new things that we eat. Forget the solicitation catalog. There's no such thing as a Diamond Previews catalog anymore, at least for the time being. They won't even accept the stuff that they already ordered. That would be like us ordering, you know, probably 100,000 pizzas to each different houses and just saying like, okay, we're not accepting those pizzas. Well, somebody made those pizzas. You know,
they want to be paid for those pizzas.
Someone's got to pay for those effing pizzas. And they're saying, we're not going to pay for those fucking pizzas. It's a big deal.
You know, there was a day, Adam, that I could probably eat all those pizzas.
Which day was it? Monday?
Years ago, man, that was my favorite. Like just pizza.
To the studio.
A whole large pizza myself in one setting. Yeah,
100,000 is too many for you to eat.
I could do it.
So all the
years ago, but not now.
Art, could you even imagine like all the publishers who've ordered work? You know, for someone to make a comic book, just say a standard 24-page comic book, and they want to ship it, let's say in April. Well, that in various states of production takes about 6 months to do, sometimes less. It doesn't take 6 months to draw. It takes from the time you hire the writer, and then the penciler starts, and maybe it's the same pencil or the inker, multiple stages of production, coloring, lettering, all that stuff. And publishers rely on money coming in every month from delivering the books to then pay the talent. And it's very, very common that a publisher would be paying last month's bills for creative meaning pencils, inks, writing, lettering, whatever. They might be paying last month's bills very typically with this month's revenue. And the same thing with paying the printers. That's why printers usually give publishers 30 days or more to pay for things that were printed. And it provides the working capital for them to do that.
Right.
And because it just keeps going, there's continuity with money going in, money coming out, and things continue. I have no idea what this is going to do, this disruption in business is going to do to independent publishers and their printers and the artists.
Well, I had this thought the other day, Adam, where, a lot of the reason that we're quarantined, or one of the reasons that they're saying they want this quarantine, is because they don't want this run on facilities like hospital facilities and stuff like that. We don't want to inundate them with, all of these sick people at one time. But the thing is, do the ends justify the means? Like the domino effects, everybody's waiting in line now to get toilet paper. You know what I mean? Like is the
wait. You know somewhere you could actually get toilet paper?
You get toilet paper? Yeah. I mean, every time I drive by the local supermarket, there's a line all the way around the perimeter of the supermarket. Everybody's got their carts, and they're waiting their turn to get into the store and basically ravage the store and then leave. And so I'm thinking, yeah, so we don't want to inundate the hospitals, but it's okay to do it with anything else, with any place that sells food or any other items that you might need to sustain yourself. So, well, I don't know, man.
With regards to the issue, the way the media is handling it is not good, and they really don't need to be at odds with the White House. They don't need to be at odds with anyone. They should be collaborating. People do die, and we don't want people to die from this virus. We don't want them to die from flus. We don't for them to die from anything. We want people to be healthy as horses. But at some point, people do die of old age or whatever else they die of. To be attributing like all deaths to the pandemic right now, where if someone does have underlying health conditions and they were about to die, like probably in 2 years, and now they get a terrible sickness, whether it's a flu or some other hospital staph infection, who knows what, so I don't know. I think that there's also an approach to things where you can be fearful because terrible things could certainly happen, or you could be optimistic because if you're optimistic, then kind of life finds a way, as that expression goes. So I understand what they're trying to do with the hospitals where, this disease, whether it's affecting primarily elderly people or whatever the group is, the hospitals don't want to get into a situation where if they have too much demand on the hospitals, they won't be able to treat people that otherwise could have gotten well, relatively soon.
Or somebody has a heart attack, or, like other people that have health issues as well. So if you're dealing with a pandemic, then you might, the staff might be maxed out and you wouldn't be able to deal with other things,
Sure.
Automobile accidents, things like that. So I completely understand that. But in the meantime, there's companies like GameStop, they're saying that might never come back. The comics industry may never come back. People are losing their jobs. There's businesses shutting down. Like, does the ends justify the means? I mean, is this for the greater good, or is this creating a bigger problem? With stock market going down, companies, like the only big companies that are going to be able to, or the only companies that are really going to sustain this are the bigger companies. But I even heard that Disney's looking into loans to bail them out through the tough times right now.
Well, anybody big is the big companies particularly, they never miss a chance to take advantage of a government opportunity. And it's impossible to even fault them for it between their lawyers and all the other things. The movie theater industry, not just the movie companies, but the movie theater industry was looking for a bailout as well because people don't want to go to theaters. It's pretty nutty. But with the comic book industry, they were obviously losing. You know, here's my thought on the comic book industry. At the point that comics were sold non-returnable, when that was introduced in, I think it was the late 1970s or early 19, definitely by the 1970s, because they were like
80s, yeah.
So, and that was really like that was Phil Seuling's Seagate Distributors was like the first distributor to buy them non-returnable. He was out of Brooklyn, and then you had Jim Shooter working with I think Chuck Rosansky and establishing it, the direct market. Some really terrific articles on the history of the direct market on milehighcomics.com, the mail order company. Chuck Rosansky has a lot of information, and he was very involved. But it created a lot of excitement, that new distribution for comics. But at that time, like any books that retailers bought, they could, anything that was unsold, they could put in their back stock and resell kind of eventually. And even if they couldn't sell it eventually, other books would be worth more money. So like even a 25-cent comic, or I was a kid with the 25-cent comics, but with like the 60-cent comics, like Alpha Flight #1 or whatever it would be, like those, you could sell those books sometimes for $1 or $3 over time. So there would be demand for a back issue, and there'd be demand for at least some of those back issues at ever increasing values. Because, you know, if you bought Alpha Flight #1 and then you got involved with Alpha Flight like by issue number 50, to go back and get those back issues, even Alpha Flight #17, that wouldn't be retail price. That would be like maybe 5 times retail price for $3. And
yeah, and also back issues were kind of integral to figuring out what's selling and what's not. So if you had a book that came out, like it's a new Spider-Man title with a certain character or whatever, and then you realize that character that was in that Spider-Man, the back issues, like say it was a character that's not, you know, a big time character, people would go into the back issue bins and start buying those to see what that character is about. And so that's how you used to be able to gauge the success of certain characters or certain runs based on back issue sales. So if back issue sales started going through the roof, then you knew that you were onto something.
And that character maybe could get their own spin-off series or limited or part limited series or something. It was great to be able to have that direct connection with the fans. It wasn't just some comics being dumped out on newsstands.
Right.
But the need for the creation of the direct market was, if you were a fan of Spider-Man or Iron Man or whatever it was, you couldn't be assured to be able to even get a copy of it. You know, so newsstands didn't control what comics they got. It was really whatever the distributor gave them. So it really worked very well, and it was all about really serving fans. So the question is, you know, as the direct market is operating, you know, there was a certain understanding of trust that publishers would only put out books that were really saleable, or books that they really thought that there was a market for. And they were really concerned about, hey, are the books that we're putting out the kind of books that people want? You know, so that was there in the 1980s, and it was there in the beginning of the 1990s. And then as time went on, it faded away. I don't see how you can have non-returnable comics being sold to a comic book store without there being a value to the back issues. You know, with it being so perishable that no one's really, I mean, there's the whole SJW thing, and that is true, and it's disrespectful and all that. But if the fundamental thing that happens is that you ship a book, Captain Marvel number 14 or whatever it is, whoever buys it, and then you have 8 unsold copies in a store, no one's ever going to want those books. That's the problem. So,
and a lot of these shops are getting smaller and smaller, so they don't even have room for back issues anymore, because you have to have a pretty good size comic shop to carry back issues.
Yeah. See, this is George's making the comment that essentially I'm making. He's echoing it, saying like, yeah, you know, publishers need to have an incentive to do good books. You know, I'm looking at, we're laying out, it's almost finished, We're adding some extra pages to College of the Dead, probably, so we can do a preview of the mermaids. I was going to make it a stretch goal. I'm like, I love these guys too much to make it let's just say we made the stretch goal. So there'll be a couple of full color, cool pages in there so people can kind of see, at the end of the book. But we're laying it out. I'm making sure that it looks absolutely fantastic. Everything has to look absolutely fantastic. Nobody can be disappointed when they get the book that I'm putting out. Right. If they're disappointed, that's going to cost me a lot of money. So there's no viability to just like, well, let's just pop the book out and see what happens. Like, we'll just come up with something else. You can't do that. People that do that are not going to build an audience.
Yeah, and future sales. If you don't deliver on that issue, then you might not get a repeat customer.
But you don't deserve it. You don't deserve it, and you're not. I mean, especially look, these are expensive books too. These are not 99-cent books. This isn't Alterna with a $1.50 comic. And the only way that Alterna can do $1.50 and $1.95 comics is because Pete takes a very small percentage of profits and gives 80% of the profits to the creators at Alterna, which is nice, but they're not making money. They're not making significant money being able to do that. And I don't know how much they make, and maybe he'll start talking about that so creators understand. But I mean, maybe not anyway, because people submit endlessly to Alterna because a lot of people want to work with Peter, and they should. He's a great guy, but it's not a guaranteed income. And I don't know how maybe he'll talk about this too, how the basically demise of the direct market, Diamond's cutoff of all new product, how that's going to affect going forward. Like what should your expectations be if you're only making a percentage of profits when you work with someone?
Right. But to go back, like what we were talking about, the direct market versus like newsstand, I think the difference and why we're here, like we're all trying to figure out how we got here and stuff. Even early on, I thought that the direct market had some pluses, but I thought that as far as growing the industry, it was bad. It was a bad idea. I don't know why people get these ideas that it has to be either or. We always have to, we'll just do this one thing or the other. But if you think about the business model, newsstand, the reader got to choose. So it was direct to reader because, like you said, most of the time, like the places like the liquor stores or the supermarkets or whatever that were carrying comic books didn't even really know what they were about. They just kind of got the books and put them up, and
they're just magazines. Just stick them on the shelf, and the kids would buy them.
Monthly periodicals, but if they couldn't sell them, they got to return them. So the consumer got to choose. It was more of consumer. Like if it didn't sell, no harm, no foul, right? But when it went direct, those retailers were buying those books. They were on the line for those books, meaning that the industry, instead of going direct to consumer, like what we're doing at, and we're going direct to the consumer, they're selling. And you hear these people, they talk very arrogantly about it now, like, oh yeah, whatever. They're selling to the retailer. Well, I'm sorry, the retailer isn't the consumer. The retailer isn't the reader.
Yeah, people mix this up sometimes. And the way it works in the supply chain is, and you didn't mix it up, but everyone but you kind of doesn't get it. It's like you want to respect your customers. Your customers are always people who are in the delivery chain of publisher to the person who's going to read and enjoy and save the comic. So retailers, Diamond is the customer. Retailers are the customer, but the consumer is a customer, but they're also the consumer. That at the end, it's the consumer. So I'm going to try and make sure I do say that again on streams and stuff too, so we have a frame of reference. It's not wrong to say that an editor is the customer of a freelancer's work. They absolutely are, but they're not the consumer. And the consumer is ultimately going to have to be happy, or they're just relying on these people that feel like they're forced to continue the Batman run, and just buy everything, every Batman book, every DC book. But there are, of course, limits.
Well, the number of scams and schemes like these big crossovers and things happen is because they know that they can get retailers excited about it, and then they know, like if it's like a 3-month campaign with all these different crossovers and stuff, they know that they're going to get that bookstore, that retail outlet on the hook for every one of those books. And then they try to scheme and scam it even beyond that, you know.
Yeah, it's like robbing poor people.
And then what happens is do the consumers really want this, or is it just trying to like put a lot of flash on it to sell it to the retailers? And that, I think that's fundamentally the problem, is they're gearing the product up to wow the retailers, but not necessarily the consumers. And I think that gets into a problem, because there's incentives. Like if the retail store orders X amount, then they'll throw in a variant Jim Lee cover or something like that. So they try to kind of, for that retailer to get that one book, they have to do all of these other things to get it. But then they might be ordering way more books than, you know, they can sell.
Yeah, they have to do a calculation. The thing is at every step of a process, and this also extends to hiring freelancers, it's got to be a good deal for everybody. Everybody has to get what they want. You know, the freelancer is looking for work. They're looking to build their reputation. The rate is a rate that's fair for them. You know, not every freelancer is going to work at the same rate. You know, different freelancers work at different rates, and you never want to exploit people. At the same time, you don't want to overpromise what you can realistically pay people. So you have to understand the market, and there may be for people like where a rate is good for one guy, but for another guy, he just got 2 other offers and they're higher. So would you expect them to, you know, to continue with on a lower rate or accept your rate? You know, sometimes people will if they prefer the project, the working relationship, but you want what's good for everybody at the time as best as possible. So for a retailer, what's concerned me actually kind of for years is not in the SJW thing. Prior to that, it's like looking at the business of a retailer. Like the business of a retailer has not been a good business for a really long time. And you know, there are people that stay in it because they love it, or they stay in it because they've been in it. But why isn't it a good business? Why not just make it a good business? And art, you know, I've been in publishing a long time, long enough to know that to print one copy, now this isn't for digital printing, but this is because digital printing is very expensive. It just is. So, and by expensive, it means like the average cost to print a book is high. And then to print one extra copy is high. So I'll give you an example. To print 100 copies of a full color 48-page comic might cost $4.25 per comic. To print 101 of them digitally might cost $4.24 per comic. It doesn't really drop off very much. However, in offset printing, when you got your printing press working and you're doing, say, minimum 500, but say 1,000 copies, to print 1,000 copies might cost $3.50 per comic, just roughly saying it. You can check it out for yourself on Mixam's cost calculator. But to print 1,001, that extra one copy might only cost like 20 cents. And the reason why is once the press is going, everything is in motion. In just a couple of seconds or less, they can produce that extra unit. So that said, we call it marginal unit cost instead of average unit cost. Marginal means one extra versus you divide the average. With digital, again, the setup is very cheap. So to be able to even produce 100 color comics, people would laugh at that going back, you know, even 20 years or something like that. But
it's
you can actually
to set up a whole printing process,
not a whole printing press and stuff. But once the scale gets going, the marginal cost, like for us to print one marginal copy, we're doing 32-page color 32-page color triumphant comics. When we were doing Chromium Man, for example, one extra comic was like 12 cents. So what I would wonder is like, good Lord, like, you know, why do I have to sell this wholesale to people for 80 cents, was 60% off or whatever it was? Yeah, 60% off. Why do I have to sell it for 80 cents to people? And then a retailer has to assume a risk buying it for $1 and try to sell it for or $1.25, and then then they're trying to you know, sell one or two extra copies and make some money. But you know, for a retailer, they're assuming risk at 50% of cover price, say if it's $5, even a better example, a $5 retail comic, a retailer has to pay at least $2.50 for that, when the cost to print that is like 15 cents. So
Yeah.
there should have been more of thinking of like, let's make this a great freaking business where the risk is in the right place. The retailer who's broke doesn't have to come up with $100 to try to make $100. Maybe they could have come up with $25 to try to make $500. Put them in a position where they can make money and then participate together. But
and if we can get the volume up, that's the thing about the industry, like beyond our business model, but like Marvel, DC, if they can sell more units, then they can lower the price of these covers, or the cover price on.
But what's amazing is that, of course, unfortunately, because of the SJW stuff, they're really not concerned with how other people in the supply chain are doing. They'll blame the retailers for not going out and promoting and marketing the books enough. Oh, well, there's transgender people in every country now, so why not go knocking door to door and spend 3 or 4 days with no sleep trying to find someone who might be interested in their version of Captain Marvel that has social justice warrior aspects to it. It's like, well, that's not how it works.
It's a niche of a niche. You're not going after like the majority of the population. And the thing is, we're all human beings. We all have a joined way of looking at life, pretty much. Like the things that are important are pretty much universally important to most people. So why not just write these stories and make these stories to have the biggest mass appeal as possible, or just relatability? Like if you're writing about a transgendered character situation, well, it might
There's still a human being, God damn it. So tell us a relatable story that a human being could relate to. It doesn't matter.
Human being.
We're all human beings,
right? Just a human condition. Just a story that resonates, whether you're black, white, Jewish, Christian, homosexual, straight, man, woman. Like it just doesn't matter. That's the way we used to tell these stories. You just tried to hit the biggest demographics and things that connected and resonated with people. And now it seems like everything is kind of so niche now. Like we can placate or we can pander to just about every niche market that there is. And I just think the idea with comics or a comic line, like an overall comic line, is not to hit a niche market, is to hit the widest market that you can. And if you want to put that niche book out, then put that niche book out. I have no problem with a transgendered book or any of these other things, like do those, but just don't expect them to be universally loved.
As creative people, the burden is on us that we say, okay, well, we want to put a character in there and have them be of this marginalized or smaller group, whatever it is. We have to make sure that person is not a token character, because that's disrespectful. Yeah. You don't have just some black guy character like, well, it's a black guy in the universe. We'll just stick him. It's got to be that he's more than just. That's how we used to talk about it. Like you can't just be, appear to be physically similar to somebody else that might be a minority character. You've got to make that character exist beyond the limitations of what they look like. It's just
just to shoehorn them in to have some kind of representation. Oh, there's a guy in a wheelchair. Well, what's his story? It's just a guy in a wheelchair.
How did he get to be in that wheelchair?
Yeah. There's no story behind it, and they're doing the same thing with a lot of this stuff. It's like, oh, there's a Middle Eastern Green Lantern. It's like, oh, there's a Middle Eastern Green Lantern. Well, what's her backstory? Why did you give her that kind of backstory? No reason, just representation. Hey, I got my food here, Adam.
All right.
It looks delicious.
We're not allowed to let Art eat on camera because it's far, far, far too sexy for the chat. Yep. That does look delicious. Art, it's been a pleasure. It's great spending time talking with you. Chrono Mechanics is still in demand. Art's new project. I have the link in the description for Black and White with the Vampirella cover. Art is going to eat something absolutely delicious. I can promise you that. All thanks to this stream. So I hope you do enjoy it, Art. And we will see you guys together soon. We'll have to do another Art and Adam. It's not Art Adams. It's Art Adam.
Ooh,
Art
I like that though. Art
and
Adam.
Adam.
Yeah,
Art
let's
and
start
Adam.
branding it like that. We'll get a lot more traction.
Art Adam. Or
Art Adams.
Wait, how about this? Art Adam 'S, right? Because Art Adams stream. Art Adams stream. And then we get the Adams in there as a possessive.
And then we start putting that all over Twitter and watch our subs go up.
Yeah, people will love it. And speaking of which, everybody subscribe to my channel, click the bell for notifications.
Yes.
Any comments on this fun stream? And we'll continue these subjects later. I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk again. Everybody support Art. We're so fortunate to have him with us in Comicsgate, helping us get things done and also reminding us how things work, because Art knows stuff that none of the rest of us do. I know some of it, but he knows the rest of it. All right, you guys, have a great one. And I will see you again soon. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.
Yes, very, very good. And I'm going to be on John Malin's show tonight.
So, oh, very cool. All right, look out for Malin tonight.
All right, guys. Thanks.